Hello, everybody. Welcome to my guide on observing. Why am I making this guide? Well, I think observing is a visual aspect of Starcraft 2 that is very often overlooked and underappreciated. Because I think a good cast will always only be as good as the observing. Observing is very different than simply going over a replay or over a match. It's to present it in a way that's cinematic, smart, action packed, and entertaining. So, what my goal is today is to give the tools to as many people as possible to improve their overall observing. This can go from the most amateur to even, I guess, professionals, although they probably all already know everything that I'm about to say today, and even casters. Now, I want to start off by saying right now, it's almost impossible to perfectly cast and perfectly observe as well at the same time, because both of them require skills that are very different. Observing, you have to think ahead of time in your decision making to figure out what you want to show at what time and how you want to show it. Whereas in casting, you're kind of in the moment describing what's happening. So it's almost impossible for your brain to think ahead and formulate sentences about the present at the same time, if you kind of understand. So right out of the gate, I think observing is super important, and I think every professional caster should also have an observer as well. But I think the most difficult part about combining casting and observing is in the decision making aspect of it. So there's going to be three concepts I'm going to be going through today. Well, three parts. It's going to be the settings you're going to be using, the mechanics of how we're going to be observing, and then there's going to be the decision making in third. So what is the kind of goal of observing, really? Well, again, it's to present the game in a more aesthetic way, in a more cinematic way, because we're not just going over a replay, we are watching StarCraft. So we're going to go into a lot of detail as to what makes observing, right? So we're going to go through my settings, personally. Let's just go in options here. So you pretty much just choose the graphics that you want. I think in observing, you definitely want everything on maximum. Unfortunately, my computer does not work that way. I can't put it on maximum. That's not how it works for me. I can put it on medium. Definitely do not observe on low. But if you can have the physics on extreme, put everything at max graphics, I think that's the most ideal thing. I think you might want to lower it if you're observing maybe some 2v2s, some 3v3s. That might be a little bit difficult for every computer to run on extreme, but I think ideally you want to max out all of these, 100%. In terms of sound, sound balance is up to you, up to whatever you're setting, right? So this is very up to you, like music, sound effects. Music tends to be pretty loud. It does take a lot of space, so I tend to leave it around like, let's say 19, and then sound effects around like 40, ambient sounds around 27, and then you just kind of use this to go around. So the sound balance in observing is definitely a thing to consider. Sometimes you're going to listen to streams or like observing, and the music is way too loud, or you have to balance with the caster, and it's like, oh my god, when Marines shoot, it's like it takes the whole space. Just balancing the sound is a part of observing that you have to go through, but that's going to be individual, depending on you if you want to have different music in the background. It depends on the volume of your own microphone, what sounds good on your microphone. Sometimes there's different levels for that. So this is going to be up to you. You're going to have to do your own tests for that. But it's something that has to be done at some point. Mouse and keyboard. It's the big thing. Mouse sensitivity, you can have it pretty much anywhere you're comfortable with. Ideally, I just keep it at 50. That's the best for me personally. But this is where it's going to get a lot more important. Cursor size. cursor size, you're going to want to reduce this to the minimum. Okay? Because you've all because we want to immerse ourselves inside the game. Have you ever watched like a VLC or like you're watching Netflix and then the mouse is in the middle of the screen and you're just and like someone like next to you is like triggering, is like, dude, could you move the mouse please? This is what we're going to do. It's part of the immersion. Having the mouse in the middle of the screen reminds us that we're in observer mode or a replay mode. So the mouse, just like anytime you're watching a video on YouTube or anything like that, you don't want to have the mouse on the screen, or at least as possible. So what we're gonna do is that we're gonna first of all reduce it to the minimum. Now you might tell yourself, well, okay, well, what if I lose track of my mouse? It actually doesn't happen. I was afraid of this at first as well, because when I use my mouse in StarCraft 2, I have it pretty small, but not too small. I have it at like there's no percentage here, but like, you know, it is what it is. My green screen is like not working super well, but hopefully it's not triggering too many people. Yeah. Anywho, yeah, you want to reduce this to minimal, and the thing is that there's not a lot of really fast movement like when you're playing StarCraft, so you're actually not gonna lose your cursor. Trust me on this. There's a lot of boxing that's involved in StarCraft 2 and control and stuff. Our mouse is gonna be very precise, but very like slow as well and methodical. So you're probably not going to lose your cursor, so don't be afraid to reduce that to the minimum. Next, scrolling. Check off the enable scroll. When you're going to want to show something or click something on the edge of a screen, you do not want the screen to just to the side. That's a bad time. Anytime you move the screen by going to the edge, it's going to look like the most unprofessional, jaggy shit ever. Just take this off so that when you need to go click something on the edge of the screen somewhere, or, you know, go get something, it's not going to scroll to the side. You don't want that happening. Every single movement we're doing is going to be very deliberate. Next, drag scroll speed. What we're going to do most of the time is that not only is our mouse going to be small, but whenever we, you know, press on our mouse scroll, it's gonna make the cursor disappear. Man, I really wish that my green screen would like chill for a second. I guess not. Anywho, we're gonna make our mouse disappear. So it's gonna be small when it is there, and most of the time, whenever we get the chance, we're gonna make it disappear by simply pressing down on the mouse scroll. So it just disappears, and we don't have a mouse on the screen. Right? Now, every single movement we're going to do is either going to be with Control-Shift-F to follow something, or we're just going to be using mouse dragging. You want this as low as you can. It'll depend on like the space that you have to work with your mouse, but personally, for me, it works best around 20%. It's just slow enough to where I can pretty much reach wherever I need to whenever I need to move the camera. But also, like, I have enough space on my desk here for about 20. If you can get it even lower, that's even better. But it depends on your workspace, honestly. If you have a very tiny workspace and you need to adjust, you might want to bump it up to like 25. I would really not go over 30, honestly. Everything over 30, and it just looks, it's too jagged. It's not smooth enough. So I like it personally at 20. If you can go lower, I think that's even better. So very important for these. Gameplay. This is a debatable thing here. So show unit life bars. A lot of times, I think in StarCraft when we play, we tend to have them either at always or damaged. But again, just like the mouse, it takes a little bit away from the immersion because we're seeing life bars all of a sudden. I keep it at damaged, but you're going to see a lot of observing sometimes where they do it at selected. So whenever you want to show that a unit is damaged, you're going to click on it and then it'll show it. So you're going to show a hurt carrier, you're going to show a hurt cyclone maybe that started to get damaged. The problem with selecting is that like it's going to be individual stuff. Because what we're going to see later is that we do not ever want to box on a screen. That is terrible, but we'll see that later. So it's going to be either damaged or selected. I have it at damaged personally, because I think that's always good information for everybody. But depending on your style, you can even go selected as well if you see that damage doesn't really do much and there's just too many bars on the screen with like low health. Because like, yeah, I mean, sometimes overstimmed bio units, you kind of want it to be damaged because you want to see that they're all, you know, low health. But this is a slightly more debatable thing. I have it on damage. You can have it on selected as well. I think both are fine. Definitely never have it at always. Yeah, that's pretty much it. Colors, intensity, you can kind of have it around like 8, I think. The thing is that I'm not too sure how it looks like on extreme graphics, so you might need to test a little bit. You just want to make sure that whenever you're looking at the screen, it doesn't hurt your eyes. That's basically it. Honestly, but at the same time, you know, you might get used to the color intensity. I have it at medium whenever I cast or observe, so I just leave it at 9 color intensity. Some people have it at 12. They're psychopaths. Some people have it very low as well, but it'll depend on like what graphic settings you're on. You're just gonna have to do a few tests there. So it's gonna be up to you. But the most important part, I think, is the mouse settings. That's probably the biggest part. The rest is a little bit, you know, like the sound and the graphics and the color intensity. You're gonna have to test that a little bit more. Cool. Observer and replay. We have the Pro 2020 now. You can definitely go for it. You definitely don't want to have the default, or WCS 3.0 is still nice sometimes. But I think Pro 2020 is just the one that everyone's going to get used to, so might as well start using it. I think it's pretty good. But yeah. Hotkeys is going to be up to you. If you're going observing here, it's just going to be like... let me just go through these. I'm just going to go and observe them. You can have this to anything you want, as long as you remember how they work. So this is one of the big things in observing, is that, and you can't get around this, you're going to have to learn every single hotkey. Now, you can modify these to whatever you want. I suggest most of them to be on letters on the keyboard and try to make them just like units, right? But this is something you're literally going to have to learn because you might need to pull them out at any point in time. A bad observer or a lazy observer will leave the production on at all times. But ideally, what you want to do, you want to focus on maybe four tabs. The most, because actually there's a lot of information at the bottom now because of the replay layout. You're going to want the production. You're going to want the units tab. You're going to want the structures tab. And you want to have the upgrades complete tab. Sometimes you're going to be like, is stim finished? Is this finished, right? So you want to get the upgrade tab open. You want to have the structures tab open because you want to know how many barracks we're at if we're not looking at the screen directly. Or sometimes, you know, especially with Terran, we've got like buildings all over the place and we can't count them all on one screen. So you can just pull up the structures tab. Units tab is important, especially in mirror matchups, because we want to compare the same type of units. If we have a PvP, we kind of want to know, okay, well, this guy has 12 stalkers and this guy has 15 stalkers. And it's hard to sometimes see that immediately on screen because we don't have time to count necessarily. We can kind of get an idea, but it's always nice to have the units tab up. So let's say we're having a stalker on stalker battle. You can just pull up, instead of having the production, which is kind of useless at this time, you can pull up the units tab and you can see who's winning because you can see the stalker count in real time with numbers. That's going to be super useful. Production tab is the one that we use by default. But honestly, if you're lazy, you just leave the production tab all the time. But there's so many more things that you can show with the production tab that you definitely don't want to skip out on information. You want to try and rotate that as much as possible. The other one is like resources lost. But now, instead of having resources lost, it's much better to simply go Shift L with the Pro 2020 and simply see what is not only the units, but the total resources lost for each side. So I much prefer that than the resource loss from both players. The thing is that one of them takes out the whole screen. The other one is in the corner, so it's up to you if you don't want to interrupt whatever's going on the screen. And the last one real quick. Oh, the vision. Just toggle V with the vision. because you want to know what a certain person is seeing versus the other. Which actually brings back one thing real quick that I'll come back. Every single game in observing is red and blue, right? So what you want to do here real quick in colors, I have my color to dark because that's what I play on ladder. But ideally, you want your color to be red or blue. Or even green, actually, technically. But ideally, red or blue, one or the other. And then the enemy color should be the opposite or whatever, right? So let's say my hostile color is red and your color is blue. Well, whenever we do the observing, it's going to change the color of the one that you're trying to get vision of, right? So if we've got a red player and a blue player on a map, and you select, let's say, an overlord, and you want to see what the overlord's seeing, you're going to press V, but then that overlord turns black. And it's like, wait, what? What's happening? Just change that to blue so that when you select and go to vision, it's at least one of the two colors that's in game, and the other one is red. And then you might pull out, and then, the Zerg is red and the other opponent's blue, but at least it's the same colors, like, right? It's just one side versus the other. You don't want to have, like, you don't want to select the overlord, hit vision, and then just have it, like, pink. And it's like, wait, what? The fuck? So yeah, probably just get that to red and blue. Back to hotkeys real quick. Is there anyone? Camera. Camera. Remember what your zoom in and out are? There's like farther zoom in and out. I have zoom on Z and shift zoom to go even farther out because there's two zoom levels, like two zoom out levels. But I also have zoom in on 3 for another reason. We'll see later. And what's going to be important as well is the pivots. So I forget which one I have exactly, but I have insert, delete, end in for like zoom in, zoom out, and pivots. That's going to be for the intro that we're going to see in a second. I forget which one's which. Hold on. Is it even here? Oh, wait. No, this is like camera. I don't know if I have to go into replay for this. No. Is it here? Oh, there you go. Extra zoom out levels. I have Z and home. I thought it was Z and end. I'm not sure. But anywho, there's a lot of camera rotations that you're gonna have to do that as well because you want to pivot the camera whenever you're doing the intros. So yeah, we'll get into that in a second. But it's honestly, you can set the hotkeys to whatever you want as long as you learn how to do them. But in terms of the like the tabs that we want to have, it's upgrades, structures, units, and production. We want to have the vision as well. Just remember how to do that. And make sure you have your camera rotations and camera zoom in and zoom out on a certain key as well, because we are not going to be zooming in with our mouse cursor. We want to deactivate that if possible, actually, because we don't want to accidentally zoom in on something, right? Because sometimes we're going fast. We don't want to have that. Don't want to have that mistakes. Every time we zoom in, it's going to be with a button. Okay. Cool. That's pretty much the settings. So I think we're good to go into a replay. So now we're going to go through the mechanics. Let's take a random replay here. Protoss versus Protoss. Okay, fuck it. Alright, Protoss is super scrub, by the way. Cool. So now we got the settings down. We're going to try and apply everything we have. And just to see how it kind of looks like in-game. So I'm actually just going to remove my my camera. Hold on. Okay. Please load, Mr. Pillars. Cool. So we remember a couple things. Obviously, there's still all the things from the previous one. So even though, you know, you got workers killed and stuff, that's Control R. I always have that on hand just to know how many workers were killed. Ideally, you might want to have WCS Game Hard or something like that to know in real time how many were killed. But yeah, we're starting off. We have the production tab here up top. As we mentioned earlier, we kind of want to know, you know, all the different tabs. So, you know, you got production. You have the structures, which I have on T. We have the units, which I have on U, and we have the upgrades, which I have on G. So those are the 3 hotkeys that I use the most. We mentioned earlier Shift L. This is for units lost. I much prefer this. I mean, I think I have. Do I even have it on R? No, I just have Control R for workers killed. I think this is what I'll be using most of the time to see like resources lost. I think that's a really good. It's really good to know after harass most of the time. I think that's a really good way to look at it. Just gonna go back on production. We're just gonna look at player intros here. So look at my mouse here. I'm just gonna make it disappear. And all of a sudden, look at that. We're looking at a base. One of the other things I like to do here is I have this, and let's say I want to jump to the other one. Well, it's actually just base camera. So I just do this, and I'm at the other base, right? Cool. I have a zoom out here, which zooms out, I think, completely. And I have my pivots on insert and delete, so I can pivot like this. Okay. And the thing is that extra zoom out is going to also bring it back to normal. So one of the things you can do here is try and time it with the zoom in to make this very kind of one sequence. Like this, right? So right now I zoomed out, goes back to neutral. If I zoom in and press it again, it comes back to neutral. Zoom out, neutral. Zoom in, neutral. When you're zoomed out and you go to neutral and then you press zoom in, you can do that kind of in sequence. So if I press both buttons at the almost same time, you get something like this. All right? Here's the tricky part. You also have pivots, right? So in pivots, you want to zoom in and pivot at the same time. So let's say you want to do this, right? Or like this, right? And you can start combining these two. So now it's just going to be pure mechanics. So let's say I twist like this and I want to zoom in. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do the thing where I go from zoomed out to zoomed in, but then I also rotate to the other side at the same time. So it goes like something like this, right? Cool. Right now I'm using 2 hands and you see my cursor is technically still on screen. So what I'm going to do is that I'm actually going to do this whole sequence with 1 hand while keeping my mouse scroll dragged in. Okay, so I'm zoomed out right now. And the thing that allows you to do as well is that since you're dragged in, you can start doing this little camera shake here. So it goes a little something like this. And then you zoom back out to neutral. All you have to do at the end there, just let go of all the rotations and just press the zoom in button once to just reset it to neutral. So once again, I'm going to zoom out like this. And I'm going to keep my finger inside. And you can start doing like kind of circular movements. And then maybe you can time it and then you go. There you go. It's not, you know, you can practice doing that. It's a little bit of a combination there. And then let's say you just want to jump to the other base. Well, cool. We're already here. We're going to do the same thing in 3, 2, 1. It is Necro. You want to keep it as smooth as possible. Very minimal movement. And using the drag scroll as slow as possible. I think this is a pretty good speed. Again, if you can go slower than 20% on mouse scroll speed, it's even better. Okay? Cool. So let's say I'm just looking at something. Well, I'm on a freeze shot. I'm just going to make my drag my cursor disappear. And then we're just going to move it a little bit if we need to adjust. We're going to have to get pretty accurate with our mouse movement. So I'm just going to click on the minimap here. Cool. We got 2 gateways. I just made my mouse disappear once again. There's no mouse on the screen. Just remember that you're triggered every single time you watch a video on Netflix and then your mouse is just in the middle of the screen and it just won't disappear. And you're like, please move the mouse, right? In our case, we're pretty lucky we can just make it disappear. It's one of the things. So we can just make everything move like this with mouse scroll. What's something else? Yeah, we're just gonna have to get pretty accurate with our clicking here on the minimap. And most of the time, what you're going to have to do is that you're going to have to look at the mini-map to see what is happening. Another thing you can do in observing, let's say you want to look for a unit, because I don't know where the observers are, right? There's 3 observers for the blue Protoss, so I'm just going to click on one. You can click it again, it's going to go to another one. You can click it again, it's going to go to another one. It's pretty useful to know. And so you want to see where the immortal is, you pull up the units tab and you click on it. Unfortunately, right now it's on screen, so I'm just going to go off screen. Click it, and it goes to the center of your screen, right? Whoop, make my cursor disappear. Cool. We can do this with this production tab as well. Let's say someone's researching Blink. You can just click on Blink, and then make it disappear immediately, right? I want to click on Charge. Whoop, my mouse disappeared. Where's my mouse? Holy shit. Nice. So we want to look at that. Let's say you want to center something. I just do this. Click F. Control-Shift-F, and then that just centers it for me. So that's a good way to do it. At the beginning, I used to do Control-Shift-F on the main bases, but I just remembered that actually base camera works in Observer as well, so you can just base camera everything if you need to, right? I use backspace for this, by the way. So yeah, let's say there's a Nexus. You see a third Nexus in the production tab. You can go to this, and holy shit, there's a third Nexus right now, and there's a shield battery. And just pan here to the army that's going to protect it. Ooh, there's an observer on the way. Control-Shift-F. I'm just going to follow it real quick. And I want to see this observer's vision. Where is it going? I can go to where it's going right now. Let go of the vision, and we see where it's kind of what is in the dark, right? You kind of want to make this a little bit more cinematic. Whoops. I had to make my cursor disappear there. One of the things you don't want to do, remember, who wants to see a green box on the screen? Do not start like, oh my god, look, he's building a fucking... He's building this, right? Do you see the immersion break that's happening right now when you do this? Definitely don't stop doing this. One of the things we're going to see later as well is when do you zoom in? Well, in terms of zooming in, I think it's only you zoom in when something dramatic happens. Like, you're not going to go like, holy shit, probes are coming in here. The warping is happening. Holy shit. Zoom ins are pretty good whenever something dramatic might happen. In my opinion. Let's say a Baneling bust happens and you're about to bust the Zealot and the wall. Maybe you can zoom in on the Zealot or something like that. Another thing that's pretty nice in zoom-ins is whenever something's really close to dying or very important. Let's say like there's some Zealots targeting a Greater Spire, and it's like, holy shit, Greater Spire just went down. Holy fuck, right? And you zoom in. You want to use zoom in as sparingly as possible. And really use it to emphasize really dramatic moments. Like if someone loses something that's really, really important. Yeah. In terms of zoom outs, I see a lot of people, and this comes from watching replays. You want to see as many things as possible, but there's something you have to remember in observing, is that when you're watching on Twitch, or when you're looking at the game on your main screen, on your desktop, remember that you're seeing the game in full screen. A lot of people watch StarCraft, and the video of StarCraft is smaller than the screen because they have a chat open. You've got the side of followers on the side. You've got the web browser bar at the top. So we're not seeing it as big as you do. Some people watch it on their phones even. Some people watch it on a laptop. And on top of that, it's like 30% of their screen instead of 100% like ours. So when you zoom out, sure, you see a lot of stuff, but like at the same time, you see nothing because you can't tell how many units are here, right? You're just way too far out. And especially when life bars starts to come into play, you're going to just see a bunch of life bars like you're just zoomed in like this, and imagine that someone's on their phone, or imagine someone's like watching on Twitch, and just this is like 30% of this is like, yeah, I mean, what you see right now, it's like reduced like 30% of its size. Like we're already zoomed out, and then we just zoom out again. You want to zoom out as least as possible. The only time you want to zoom out, in my opinion, is if someone's setting up a surround and it's really necessary, but do not stay zoomed out at all. You kind of want to stay in this, see? Ooh, shit, you just missed the disruptor shot there. But you want to try and stay on this base camera as much as possible. Why? Well, technically, it's very clear what's happening. You're not zoomed in necessarily on everything. It's a very good angle. You see what's happening. You can see the interactions clearly of each player. Whereas if you have like a small army and we're just looking at this, it's just so much less impressive, kind of, right? Just every unit is a lot bigger, animations are a lot clearer, and we see what's happening. Right now I'm getting wrecked. And also, this is the mode that most people are used to. Remember, zoom outs didn't really exist until Heart of the Swarm. So a lot of people kind of, quote unquote, grew up in Wings of Liberty with this base camera everywhere. We couldn't zoom out before. We can now. So a lot of times, and also people that's playing the game cannot zoom out themselves. So they're used to this view. So using this view, I think, is very, very useful. Right. I think most of the time we want to be using, you know, the minimap as much as possible. We want to kind of see what's going on here. And I just want to check how many workers have been killed. Looks like Blue Protoss has lost 16 workers so far. Is he going to get the Warp Prism? No. And we see that he is chasing, but he's probably not going to get it. So we can just look at the economy right now. We got extended thermal lens. We just click on it, and we see that it's researching. I just made my mouse disappear once again. We don't want to have that in the way. And really, honestly, most of the observing is looking at the minimap in advance. So let's say there's a Warp Prism coming in, and there's a fight. Well, you look at the fight, but you look at the Warp Prism. You would just want to like tell when the Warp Prism is actually going to siege up or something. So you're looking at a fight or something like that, and you're just waiting for the Warp Prism to siege up. And as soon as you see the Warp In on the production tab, that's when you cut to the shot of the Warp In's finishing, and that's going to be really, really cool. You just want to be looking at action like as much as possible. This is breaking rocks, but that's action technically, right? There's a lot of, you know, let's say armies moving. That's pretty cool. I want to have a dark shrine. Holy shit, we're highlighting that it's a dark shrine. We're going to get the expansion as well. We want to kind of highlight every important information, but every single time there's action, we want to prioritize action as much as possible, right? So when I say action, it's anything animation based. So building construction is action. Units warping in is action. Buildings warping. Wait, I already said that. Buildings warping is action. Movement is action as well. It's very boring to, except for like the information, it's very boring to just look at this, right? There's not, I mean, technically there's a building, it's not that great. There's just workers mining. We see that all the time. It's just not as interesting, right? Okay, we might see a confrontation here. We see both armies on the same, and now they spread apart. A lot of times I see Mapu do this as well, but he almost never drags the camera. You just choose your shots. You choose what shot you want to go on. Try to get on it as accurately as possible, and maybe adjust a little bit, and then you stop. You go to the opponent's, and then you go and grab that as well. So you see a counterattack here leaving for the bottom base. Yeah. So you want to zoom out as the least amount as possible, only to really get the big picture before going back into zoom. Because a lot of times we overestimate how big everything is on our screen, and we got to make everything as clear as possible. Also, let's say I was on the side here. Okay. Now I want to click a zealot. If I want to like do this and click a zealot here or something, this would have made the screen go to the side, right? So let's say I'm clicking on a warp prism, and I'm trying to click this, then like that, the screen would have moved like without me wanting it to, right? Also, when you're on Control F, you can actually just like pivot to this. It's kind of cool. This is very smooth. I do like the follow thing. I think a lot of people might abuse it a little bit too much, but try to use every kind of motion as different as possible. Remember in movies, it's not all like follow shots. Sometimes it's a lot of like straight shots. We move. Straight shot, and then sometimes we have a pan as well. You can have a panning thing. It depends on you, but Zealot counterattacked. Okay, on the building warping in. We want to show where it's going. That's cool. I'm kind of rambling on at some point. I think we get most of the ideas. In terms of like decision making, I'm kind of like going through it as well. So it's like what we want to show. You basically just want to show as much action as possible. But in terms of being the observer, you want to just look at the minimap as much as possible, because you do not want to miss a thing. If there's counterattacks, if there's damage being done, it's like exciting stuff, right? If you're just zoomed out here all the time and you're just kind of looking at the armies and you're like, oh, that's the army there. And you're just kind of waiting on this screen. Oh, look at this is the main base, huh? Cool. Oh, there's a warp prism here. Oh, he's gonna catch it. Boom, and that goes down. And then you know, right there, I just kind of stop on the frame where it died. It's kind of cool. Oh, there's a fight happening. Sometimes when it's hard to see, you can even pivot a little bit if you want, if it's a little clearer. That was not the best pivot there. But sometimes there's army that's on top of each other, and you kind of want to pivot just to get a little bit of a better view. But ideally, you kind of want to keep everything the way the screen is, right? It is the most standard. Is there anything I wanted to talk about? I think... Yeah, I think you just want to go on whatever's the newest, whatever's like most interactive. Obviously, in professional games, there's a lot more stuff happening. But I think just highlighting the most animations as possible, as weird as that sounds, is one of the most important parts of the entire game. Just zealots moving is animation. Army moving is animation. Big buildings building is animation. Attacking buildings, right? That's pretty cool. Oh, there's action over here. Cool. Looks like it's going to be a base strat. I want to highlight this. I'm just going to click on this just to see that it is in fact going on. Making the mouse disappear. Cutting back to this. What's the damage being done? And, you know, there's a lot of stuff on the production tab right now, like a Stargate, but I don't really want to click on a Stargate when so much action is happening. So you kind of just want to stay on this. All right. Stalkers are here. Oh, we got a recall. Where did the recall go? Right here. We want to see where it's going. I'm just going to zoom out. And zoom back in here. It's a regular. You're going to see that it is, in fact, right there. There's a cool animation here. Cool. We can pretty much see everything pretty clearly, I think. Maybe a bit of a zoom out here might be necessary. Okay, zoom back in. We should be fine here. As long as I have everything on screen. It's a very cool fight. We see that he's retreating. We want to try and follow the army, I guess. Ooh, looks like he's pushing back again. In the meantime, we got a counterattack. So I'm just looking at the minimap right now. I want to see what's happening. You see that he defended this. Okay, so he's defending that, but he's pushing at the front as well. The Immortals are coming in. We kind of want to follow it. I don't want to click on follow the Immortal because it's going to put the Immortals at the center, which is not necessarily what I want. I want two sides, right? I don't want something at the center because there's two parties. So that dies. I'm just going to follow this with the drag scroll. I'm going to see that they, in fact, get away. Now I can sort of highlight the carriers, so I just clicked on that right here. I see the carriers on the way. I made this disappear. I'm just going to let the people process that carriers are making for a second before cutting back to action. That got picked off. And stuff died as well. Spot out a cheeky expansion as well real quick. And I'm going to see 5 carriers on the way. You know. Oh, shit. That upgrade is on the way. My computer's just dragging. Oh, this is really awesome too. Just notice when stuff is finishing, because when the carriers actually come out of the Stargate, it's really cool to watch. Right? You're going to notice that a lot of what I'm doing is just, it's all about visuals, right? You want to see the carriers come out of the Stargates. That's like really cool, right? So just notice when stuff is finishing as well. Like, let's say an Immortal finishes, like the first Immortal finishes, you kind of want to be over the Robo just as it finishes as well. Or like you want to see the Nexus just as it finishes, or maybe the lair just as it finishes, or maybe a building just as it finishes, right? When buildings finish, that's a pretty good time to look at them as well. We want to see how they posture. We want to see that he's in fact retaking this base, and he wants to set himself up here. There's some warp-ins. Looking at this, there's an Archon. There's 2 Immortals coming out. I'm just panning into here. We see the Immortals pop out. It's pretty cool. It's the High Templars being made as well. Dark Templar is happening. There you might see a fight real quick here. Zoom out, zoom back in. And we just see him being chased out right now. Just dragging it slowly. Slowly. Now he's retreated. We're pretty much done. Whoop. Just click on the mouse to make it disappear. Okay, that's done. That was actually a very long drag. I was actually running out of pad right there. But try and recenter your mouse as possible pretty much every single time that you change spots, right? I want to see that he's coming down here towards the low side. I want to see the whole army. I'm zooming back into normal. Okay, the army is going to try and go defend this. Oh, but he's actually not going through with it. So he's retreating once again. Anything I want to talk about here as well? No, I think you just got to really focus on the visual aspect. Just try to make it as nice, as clean as possible. I've been using the tools that I kind of explained so far, you know, making the mouse disappear, using follow if necessary, you know, kind of like this. There you go, and you can make it disappear. Oh, right. If ever you're following something, you just press escape to let go of that, right? One of the things we love to do sometimes in observing as well, especially with harassing you. Oh, shit, that was a recall. I just missed that. It's hard to tell without recalls. But remember that you can click on a unit and you're going to see the kills here at the bottom. So whenever you have a damaged building, make sure you click on the building so we see the numbers, right? We see that, let's say a building is low, or we see how much health is left on it, or we see how many kills a certain unit has, right? Sometimes in immortal pushes, there's like an immortal with like 20 kills. We kind of want to highlight that. So remember that you can click on a unit right here, and once you're done with it, make sure to hit escape. Just to deselect it, basically. And just go with action. Not sure if there's a pro game I could use. Maybe I will. But I think this is a pretty good example of everything we can do in observing. So I think I'm gonna leave the video at that. Yeah. There's a lot of stuff to highlight. All you see, you can go slowly. I think that the first step, just get all of your settings correctly, learn all your hotkeys, right? I got a lot of production. Right, the thing is that right now I'm casting as well, but ideally I kind of want to be going to units as well, just to see the carrier count, structures, upgrades. This is why like it's very difficult to cast and stuff, because like I'm trying to explain what's happening in the game and what I'm doing. But if you're just silent and you can just focus on the game entirely, you'd be looking at like this nexus and you'd just be looking before a fight, and then you can just press like units and you're just like, holy shit, there's 12 Starcraft 11, there's 6 carriers in total. And like if we want to have a gateway war, there's a gateway timing. You can be going like, look at that, there's like 7 gateways to 10 warp gates. I have NecrO's 10 warp gates, 7 warp gates for the opponent. You know, stuff like that. So try and use that as much as possible. If you want to know who's in the lead, if they're like both maxed out, well, we can see the units lost tab. Looks like Necro has lost a little bit more than the opponent, so we can just do that. Also, technically, you can still do this in drag scroll, so you can still follow the game while a unit's lost. In fact, you can still follow a unit while a unit's lost, right? So let's say I click on the warp prism, hit Control F, and I'll still follow it, despite the fact, right, that I'm on this screen. So right now I'm still following it. I'm just gonna press escape to get out of it, because there's a fight. I'm gonna zoom out just to see what's happening, and I'm gonna zoom in to see the details of what units are dying, which is pretty important. Oh, running out of mouse pad here. Oh my god, these fights are going large. Cool. We're seeing. Zoom in. I'm just going to try and center here on the carriers. That's the most important part of that being sniped. And yeah, it's not working out. Lots of interceptors going. We see some damage here on the minimap happening as well, so we can just cut to that for a second. Just let them know what's happening. And yeah. That's pretty much it. I want to see workers kill tab at any moment as well. That's cool. But try and focus on everything that is action on the game. So everything that's attack, movement, buildings finishing, units finishing, critical upgrades finishing, units being sniped. You got to look at the minimap a lot. You're pretty much going to be playing with the minimap as much as possible. Right now I'm looking at there's a Zealot counterattack. So I'm just going to see that it's Nexus die because that's an animation. And then I'm just going to go to the bottom here and I'm going to look at the Zealot counterattack. So I wanted to see the Nexus die because that's a visual aspect that even though we know it's going to die, we kind of want to see it die. You know what I mean? We want to see the Nexus die. So I'm just going to stay on this as well. The Nexus dies. Cool. I could go to something else now. We see that this has been cleaned up. Very good. See Zealots starting to warp in. And we see some carriers on the way as well. Seeing stuff die and explode is really, really important. Boom. We see that explode. It's very important. The more explosions in this game, the better, honestly, for the visual aspect. See a Zealot counterattack going there. Cool. I want to see this Nexus die real quick. I know the counterattack is happening on the minimap. I watch it. Cool. That's dead. Cool. I want to see the impact right about now. Right? It's kind of the timing I want to hit. I don't want to look at the Zealot warp in like just as it comes in. I want to see it when it hits. Ooh, I kind of want to see the animation. Boom. Nice. So there's warp. So you know, there's a recall. Recalls are a little bit difficult to catch because unless you're on it, you don't really know what's happening. But you want to try and catch the recall actually happening because we want to show that the transfer is being done. Oh, whoops! I missed the Nexus being killed there. That's my fault. Cool. It's GG. Yeah. Hopefully that helped a lot of you. As I said, basically just get your settings down, learn your hotkeys. And try and look at the minimap as much as possible for everything that's happening. In terms of when you're a caster, I think when you're a caster, what you can improve is simply modify your settings and just improve maybe your camera mechanics, your zoom in mechanics when you choose to kind of zoom in, zoom out. Obviously, you might not be able to catch everything because you're explaining what's happening on screen. You might miss something on the minimap. It's very possible. You're looking at production tab. That's possible as well. So don't worry about that. We just want to try, maybe for casters that have to observe as well, just try and make your camera movement as smooth as possible and just make it as visually appealing as possible. So there's a lot of tips and tricks in here. If you're observing on your own and someone's casting with you, make sure you listen to the caster, but also just simply show the caster what needs to be shown and really follow the action as much as possible. The fact that you don't have to cast makes it so that you really have the time to try and pinpoint every point of action on the map and really be methodical at how you want to show it without needing to describe it, which is really, really cool. So hopefully that helps. And if you guys have any questions, you can leave them in the comments below and I'll try and answer them. One of the questions I won't be able to answer, however, is can you please fix your green screen? No, my lighting is just bad. I need to figure out like how to make this green screen a little bit more flat because it's just not picking up correctly. But yeah, any question regarding observing, I can definitely help with that. So please appreciate all your observers, the Infezos, the Funkas, the Mapus, absolute gods. Do not take observing for granted. If a cast is good but the observing is shit, the game just looks shit. There's some platinum games or some diamond games that could look more entertaining than if True was against like fucking Dream or something like that and the observing is bad. I would much rather watch a diamond game that's well observed and well casted than a pro game that's well casted but badly observed, you know what I mean? Don't take it for granted. Make it smooth as possible. Remember, you want to give it's a viewer experience, right? It's not just for the ears, it's for the eyes as well. So yeah, definitely try and improve as much as you can. And remember all these factors that I've talked about, especially with zoom outs. Try to zoom out as least amount as possible. Because you want to take in consideration how people watch StarCraft, right? They watch it either on the screen far away sometimes when they're in the audience. Let's say that, they're in the audience of like a WCS. Sure, it's a big screen, but it's still pretty far. Like, you don't want to be zooming out, right? The big screen isn't necessarily in front of them. Sometimes it's pretty far. So as an observer, you don't want to like just like zoom out and not be able to see anything, right? And same goes for when you're watching on Twitch. A lot of times you have Twitch chat. I personally turn Twitch chat off. I don't have it full screen, but I have Twitch chat off because I just don't like Twitch chat for Starcraft, particularly. In particular, it doesn't bring much for me, generally. But yeah, they don't have it full screen, right? So it's one of the things I learned definitely. Yeah, of course, I think the last tip I can give is if ever there's a cast where you're observing something, just rewatch the broadcast and try and spot could have moved that a little bit smoother. It's like not sure. Looking at that was the best option. I made a mistake here. Like I thought it was a warp prism. Turns out it was just a changeling, and I looked at that for no reason. Maybe thinking, I should learn the timing on when the Protoss puts Stargate down. Just look at the gas, right? He's about to have 150 gas. I want to go to the probe before it puts down the Stargate, right? Because like the audience wants to be there when it happens. You don't want to just like, oh shit, Stargate started. Let me just cut to the Stargate that's already made, right? The audience kind of wants to be there when it starts. So learn also your expansion timings. That could be pretty good as well. So let's say it's a ZVZ. Well, it's like, oh shit, well, I'm noticing the drone is coming out here. It's like 2:35. He's about to put that third base down. It's a pretty big deal. You're gonna want to look at the expansion before it happens. You want to see it morph into the third base, right? You want to make it so that the audience, gets to see shit happen in real time. You want to show them as much as possible. You don't want to miss much, and you want to hit it. When counterattack happens, you don't want to look at the counterattack going. You want to look at the counterattack when it hits, right? That's the most important part, especially when there's other stuff going on at the same time. And yeah, I'm just rambling at this point. But yeah, I think just looking at your own observing afterwards, you can learn a lot. I've learned a lot for sure when doing that. So yeah, good luck.